Today we are exploring 31 incredible places in Budapest, the capital of Hungary, or Budapest as it's known locally. And we're gonna get straight into it, starting with number 1, Széchenyi thermal baths. I have Googled all of these pronunciations in this video before starting it, but I am probably gonna get some of them wrong because Hungarian is an incredibly tricky language. It doesn't really have any parallels in the languages around it. So most Eastern European languages are Slavic and I'm Czech, so typically I like to think that I can do a pretty good job of pronouncing them, but Hungarian is one tricky mother. Built in 1913, Széchenyi baths are the most visited attraction in Budapest and one of the biggest natural hot spring spa baths in Europe. A day ticket costs £19 or $26 and gives you access to your own cabin where you can store all your possessions, and this is what they look like. The whole complex consists of 3 outdoor and 15 indoor pools, as well as 10 saunas and steam cabins, massage therapy rooms, and more. I personally prefer the outdoor bits because while swimming there you can admire the yellow neo-Baroque facades that make the building so distinctive, and it's also great for people watching. A lot of the locals come here early in the morning, some just to relax and have a swim, and some to play chess inside the pools, which I think is incredibly cool. On the weekends, Széchenyi baths also organize nighttime parties called Sparties that run from 10:30 p.m. to 3 a.m. Admission costs about £46 or $63 and a little bit more with drinks included. I will admit I have never been to a Sparty myself, but they do look very, very fun. Once you're done at the baths, go check out the nearby Vajdahunyad Castle. It's a really interesting structure because it's actually a pastiche. That means a work of art that imitates one from another era or artist. In this case, it imitates several time periods. The castle takes elements from some of Hungary's most famous historic buildings. If you look closely, you'll notice Romanesque, Gothic, Renaissance, and Baroque elements all rolled into one. Fun fact, it was originally built out of cardboard and wood, but the public liked it so much that they decided to build this permanent version. There's also a boating lake nearby, a mysterious statue of the medieval chronicler who went by the moniker Anonymous, and the Hungarian Agricultural Museum. Before we proceed to number 3, I just want to explain what's going on with my voice because you're probably thinking, oh, she sounds really weird. Yes, I do. I am a little under the weather, by which I mean I currently have COVID. Yes, it's finally caught up with me. I thought I was invincible. Turns out I am not. So this is as good a moment as any to ask you to subscribe if you haven't already. I am dedicated to this. I am really dedicated. So hit that subscribe button and let's move on to number 3, which is, I need to check my notes, Hero Square. Hero Square is one of the city's major squares, known for the Millennium Memorial. It was built to commemorate the 1000th anniversary of the foundation of the Hungarian state in 895. Right next to it, you'll find the Budapest Hall of Art, a contemporary art museum built opposite the Budapest Museum of Fine Art. Once you're done exploring the area, hop on the Budapest Metro. Its Line 1 was built back in 1896, making it the second oldest underground railway system in Europe, second only to the London Underground. Take the metro back to the city center, where you can start by visiting the Great Market Hall. It's both the largest and oldest indoor market in Budapest, built in 1897. On the ground floor, you'll find stalls selling lots of Hungarian staples: sweet paprika, Tokaji wine, Turórudi chocolate bars, kolbász sausage, as well as lovely fresh fruit and veg. If you're lucky, you might also meet this lady who really didn't like me. On the second mezzanine floor, you can buy souvenirs from the cute to the downright creepy and grab some food. My favorite is definitely langos, a circle of deep fried dough, typically absolutely covered in sour cream, grated cheese, and lots of garlic. The market is open Monday through Saturday, starting from 6 a.m. till about 5 or 6 p.m. Right next to the market, you'll find Liberty Bridge. It's not the city's most famous, I'll be talking about that one later on, but I thought it was really beautiful. As you'll notice in this video, Budapest is full of Art Nouveau architecture, which I'm a huge fan of, and this is just our first taste of it. Our next stop is the Inner City Parish Church, which is the original gravesite of the martyr Bishop Saint Gellert, or Jared of Csanád. Old Jared is actually one of the patron saints of Hungary, and they hold a feast for him on the 24th of September, the day of his martyrdom. Next up, we've got the Vigadó Concert Hall. The original building was destroyed only 20 years after being built during the Hungarian War of Independence in 1848. It was rebuilt in 1859, however, based on designs by architect Frigyes Fessel, the same person who designed the interior of the Dohány Street Synagogue, which we'll visit later. They've got some great exhibitions and guided tours. In fact, I had a tour guide show me around, although I'm not sure all the facts that he told me were necessarily true. Judge for yourselves.
Behind me here you can see the biggest jacuzzi of Budapest, and poor people, they don't know about it, they just think it's a normal fountain. And so what they do is just sit around and, you know, looking at it, but otherwise they could go in and have a nice time.
Wow.
So,
stupid tourists. Oh yeah.
All right.
We push him in.
There you go, a very little known fact about Budapest. Our next stop is one you should definitely have on your list if you are in Hungary, and that is the Hungarian State Opera. Aside from opera performances, there's also ballet and classical concerts, and even if that's not your jam, the building is still well worth a visit for the interior design, which dates back to 1884. We're talking towering marble columns, a vaulted ceiling covered in murals depicting the Nine Muses, and a very impressive 3,000 kilo bronze chandelier. The whole thing honestly feels like a ballroom set from Beauty and the Beast. Our final musical entry is the Liszt Ferenc Academy of Music, founded in 1875. It really looks like the late 19th century was a great time for Hungary's architecture. Once again, if you're a fan of Art Nouveau like me, this place is one you shouldn't miss. If you're lucky, you might even catch a piano recital performed by a current student or one of the graduates. Right around the corner from the academy, you will find Gosdő Udvar, a really cute courtyard that's full of bars and restaurants, and on the weekends, even a flea market. But then you keep walking because you're really close to the Jewish Quarter, and that is a place that should be on your must-visit list for Budapest because it's incredible. I have been to Jewish neighborhoods in cities all across Europe, but none are quite like this. According to estimates, Hungary has about 130,000 Jewish citizens, most of whom are concentrated in the capital. And despite the horrors of World War II, their culture seems to be thriving. You see it in all the Hebrew signs on the streets and the restaurants named after Israeli cities. And the best place to learn about the local Jewish community is the Dohány Street Synagogue, the largest synagogue in the Eastern Hemisphere. As I already mentioned earlier, its interior was designed by Frigyes Fessel, the same man behind the Vigadó Concert Hall, and the exterior is really beautiful as well. The synagogue is located on a leafy street with a very dark history. It once marked the border of the Budapest ghetto. In fact, the whole present-day Jewish quarter roughly follows the boundaries of the ghetto from the war era. But in stark contrast with its chilling history, the district is now really renowned for its wild nightlife. Most of the action is centered around Kazinczy utca, a long mural-covered street lined with restaurants and ruin bars. Ruin bars started back in 2001 essentially as cheap places to get drunk. A bunch of young people started taking over the Jewish quarter's abandoned buildings, filling them with mismatched furniture and serving very, very cheap beer. The first ruin bar to open was Simpla Kert. It's no longer the biggest, that title goes to Instant, but it's still the best known. Lonely Planet even named it one of the 100 best bars in the world a few years ago. As is the case with all things counterculture that suddenly become popular, ruin bars are no longer the cheap hangouts they were a decade ago, nor are they hugely authentic spots to meet locals. But if you're in the mood to party and don't mind doing it in a crowd of fellow Brits, Aussies, or Americans, I would still recommend Simpla Kert and all the others as one of the best nights out in Budapest. I mean, where else can you sit in an old Trabant car, smoke shisha, and down shots of palinka? The answer is nowhere. And speaking of palinka, it is a bit of a rite of passage. It isn't a very pleasant type of alcohol. It tastes very, very strong. Like, it's got pictures of nice sounding fruit on the bottles. Don't let that fool you. But it's something that, you know, if you're a drinker, is worth doing, and you can actually just do it in Simpla Kert like I did. And as you can see, yep, I absolutely loved it. And if you need something to go with those Palinka shots, check out Caravan Street Food, a small open-air market full of food trucks. I'd definitely go with the langosh, that deep-fried dough I mentioned earlier. While we're on this slight food tangent, I also want to mention Hungarian goulash. Now, this stew is popular all across Central Europe, including Czech Republic, where I'm from, but it did originate in Hungary. And the way they serve it there is a little bit different. It's almost like a soup, but still absolutely delicious. I'm a big fan. And there's one more culinary wonder you should acquaint yourself with, the Esterházy torte. It's a delicious layered cake full of vanilla buttercream and almond meringue dough. Alright, that's enough food talk. Our next stop is the Széchenyi Chain Bridge, the famous bridge that I hinted at earlier. And here to tell us a little bit more about it is the guide from earlier who told us about those jacuzzis. But this time, I think what he's saying might actually be true.
Actually, the sculptor, he forgot about the tongues and he thought it would be important. But then, next day, when the lions came out, then all the papers were writing about, oh, what a miss, okay, there are no tongues in the lions. So he got really upset and the poor guy got very depressed.
Oh no.
And then he got so depressed that he wanted to commit suicide. But that's a true story. And there were his friends and they went up to him and said, oh, come on, it's not so important, go commit suicide. And then the papers also said, okay, it's not so bad, even without the tongues, these lions look cool. So finally he actually gave up committing suicide.
A 15-minute walk away from the Chain Bridge, you will find Matthias Church, one of the oldest and most impressive buildings in the entire city. I'm not exaggerating when I say it has one of the prettiest roofs I have ever seen. But even so, it tends to get overshadowed by the nearby Fisherman's Bastion as a popular photo spot. This bastion is fully free to enter if you want to see the balconies. If you want to go up one of the 7 turrets, you need to pay a very small fee, and all that money goes toward maintenance of the building. Fun fact about the 7 turrets, they are used to represent the 7 Hungarian tribes that founded present-day Hungary back in 895. And if you remember our little trip at the beginning to the Millennium Memorial, the memorial was built to represent the same thing and the same date. So pretty cool. There's a lot of parallels. The 0 kilometer stone is just a quick pit stop. It marks the reference point from which all road distances to Budapest are measured in the country. It's not something you need to go out of your way to see, but if you're already in the area, it is pretty cool. Our next stop, however, is one you should probably add to your list, and that is Buda Castle. So one thing you may not know about Budapest is that it actually consists of 3 distinct towns: Buda, Óbuda, and Pest, or Pest. Pest doesn't sound very good, does it? Pest. These 3 towns were officially combined in 1873, and you can try and guess which one of the 3 Buda Castle was built in. Correct. That is correct. It was Buda. Yep. The oldest part of the castle was built in the 14th century by Stephen, Duke of Slavonia. And then in 2010, Katy Perry used its courtyard as the setting for the music video for Firework. I think some other stuff happened in between those 2 as well, but to find out more, you will need to visit the castle yourself. Do time it so that you can see the guard change, by the way. That is a really nice show. The castle also houses the Hungarian National Gallery and the Budapest History Museum if you'd like a bit more culture. But if you just want to have a little wander, check out the Castle Garden. The World Heritage Site isn't just a beautiful neo-Renaissance garden, although that would be reason enough to go there. It's also home to lots of exhibition areas, panoramic terraces, event spaces, and outdoor venues. Give yourself about an hour to walk around and take it all in. Speaking of walking, I've got 2 more great walk suggestions on this side of the river. The first is the Jared of Csanád Monument, a colonnade on top of a hill with spectacular river views and, of course, a giant statue of Jared himself, the 11th century monk. If you've been listening carefully, you'll remember I mentioned good old Jared earlier when we visited the inner city parish church at the beginning of the video. But my favorite walk takes you to the top of Gellert Hill. There you will find a military fortification. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it's not really the Citadella itself that I care about. For me, it's all about the views. You can get some great photos if that's your sort of thing. And I also like the nearby Liberty statue built in 1947 in honor of those who died in the war. The walk up Gellert Hill isn't too strenuous. All in all, it takes about 15 minutes to reach the top, and the road is paved with asphalt, so you don't need any special footwear. But if you do feel tired after this little adventure, don't worry, because our next stop is Hotel Gellert, inside a gorgeous Art Nouveau building. And I don't think I've ever said the words Art Nouveau this many times in one video before. But yes, inside a beautiful Art Nouveau building, you'll find a very fancy spa. Sadly, I was too poor when I visited Budapest, but apparently this is what the interior looks like, so I'd say that's well worth a visit. Now, one of the main reasons why I was so poor on this trip is because I spent my money on something else, on a dinner river cruise. These cruises cost in the range of 50 to 70 pounds, that's roughly $70 to $100, but it's worth it for the views in my opinion, and sometimes there's also a live band on board, and the food is really nice and traditional. It's not exactly wild, the crowd is definitely older, but I'm sure there are some great nighttime party boats as well, if that's what you'd prefer. And this cruise literally brings me to the final spot on our list, the Hungarian Parliament building. It is probably my favorite building in all of Budapest, and that might be because it reminds me of home. Apparently, its domed neo-Gothic structure was inspired by the British Houses of Parliament in London, where I live. You can even go inside on a guided tour and see a plenary session in action. I hope you found this video helpful. What are your favorite spots in Budapest, and what other cities would you like me to cover next? Thank you so much for watching. I am gonna go lie down now, but don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next Friday, hopefully fully COVID recovered.